Hello guys, you're welcome to uComputing Systems YouTube channel. My name is Eugene, and today we are going to have a look at how we can use Windows System Image Manager to create an answer file to automate the installation of a Windows operating system. The Windows operating system we are going to be using is Windows 8, but before we start, we're going to have a look at how we can get access to the Windows Assessment and Deployment Kit on Microsoft Download Center. You can use this link over here to visit Microsoft Download Center and then use the search engine over here to have access to the Windows ADK if you don't have one. So when you reach this website, what you need to do is to just type here Windows ADK, and what we are going to be using for our work today is the Windows ADK 8.1. So if you don't have a copy of the Windows ADK, I recommend you visit this particular link over here and download a copy. When you click on the first link on the result that has been given here, you can have the option to download it from this site. I've already downloaded my copy and it's on my machine, so I'm just going to use that one. We're going to be using VMware Workstation 11 to perform this lab practicals, and I'm going to use my Windows 8 operating system. So I'll just resume my virtual machine here by clicking on the resume button, and then when the machine is done resuming, I'll enter full screen mode. And as you can see, we have a Windows 8 operating system here. But when I open my computer, let me bring my icons to the desktop. The default Windows desktop icons, because it's a new installation, it's not showing. Okay, so I'll bring it up by using this option over here. And then I'll open my computer. And as you can see, I have a Windows 8 Pro setup using. We need Windows ADK 8.1. That is what we're going to use. So I'm going to double click on this CD icon over here and connect my Windows ADK ISO file to it. I'll browse to the location of my Windows ADK package. I have the Windows ADK 8.1 here. You can also use the Windows ADK 10 version to perform the same lab practicals that we're going to do if you have one. Before you can create the Windows answer file for your Windows installation, what is required is that you need the Windows SIM, the Windows System Image Manager, and then you also need a catalog file or an image of the operating system you want to create the answer file for. So the first thing that we need here is our Windows ADK. We're going to install the Windows ADK so that we can have access to our Windows SIM, which is the Windows System Image Manager. I have a copy of it here. I open my computer and open 8.1 ADK and then run the setup. I'll run as administrator and accept here by clicking on yes. Once the setup is done loading, it gives us an option to specify the installation path that we want to use. We'll leave the default, but it is stated over here that the required disk space before you can install the Windows ADK 8.1 is 6.1 gig. So you have to make sure you have this space available on your local hard drive before you can have this installed. So I'll click on next here, and then the setup is giving us the chance to join Microsoft's Customer Experience Improvement Program. So if you are interested, you can just switch the radio button to yes, but I'm going to select no here because this is just a test machine. I'll click next and accept the license agreement by clicking yes over here, and then it gives us a list of deployment tools that we can install with this particular setup. We are not going to use all these tools, so I'm going to uncheck some of these tools. I'm going to uncheck them. I just need the deployment tools and then Microsoft SQL Server 2012 Express Edition. So I'll click install here. Okay, so once the installation is complete, what we're going to do here is to close this window over here and then launch the Windows System Image Manager from the Start menu. And I always recommend that you run the deployment tools in administrative mode. So you just right click on the Windows System Image Manager and you click on Run as Administrator. I'll select yes here to allow the tool to run. Okay. Once the tool has started, I'm going to take some time to show you how this thing works. This is where we create the answer file, and this is the location that we load our Windows image or the catalog file. Windows System Image Manager requires two files to work. It's either you use a Windows image or a catalog file, and you can also have a distribution share where you can add your updates and then device drivers to your answer file creation. Okay, so what we're going to do here is to go get our Windows image, either a Windows image or a catalog file. If you have a catalog file available, you can use it, and if you don't have and you also have a Windows image, whether it's a captured image or the image that is within the sources folder of the normal Windows DVDs, operating system DVDs, you can use it. So I'm going to connect a Windows 8 operating system DVD to this virtual machine. I'll leave the full screen mode and then I'll double click on this CD icon over here and then browse. Step back. If you have an ISO image of your Windows 8 operating system, you can use it, or whatever operating system that you want to create the answer file for, you can use it. The Windows SIM can be used to create answer files for Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, and then Windows 10. But if you are using the Windows ADK 8.1, you might not be able to use it to create for Windows 10 unless you are using the Windows ADK 10 version, because Microsoft has indicated the various ADK versions that is used for the various operating systems. And the same way, you can also use it to create an answer file for Windows 208, Windows 208 R2, Windows Server 2012, and Server 2012 R2. Okay, so I'm going to do this one for Windows 8. So I'm going to just connect an OS ISO to this machine. I have Windows 8 Professional. I'm going to use that. I'll click OK over here and go full screen mode. As you can see, the Windows 8 Pro setup DVD is loaded, but we just need the install.wim file, the image of this operating system, not the entire files we have in this operating system DVD. So I'll right click on it and select open. I'll open the sources folder and then we scroll down to install.wim. If you're finding it difficult locating install.wim, you can just press I to take you to the I column and then you can select install.wim. We are going to copy this one to our system we are not going to run it from the operating system DVD. It's not recommended to run it from the operating system DVD, because if you load the Windows image in your system image manager, it's going to try and generate a catalog file at the location where the Win file is. And we all know that this operating system DVDs are usually read-only, so you can have an error if you try to just open Windows SIM and load the image from here. So I'm going to create a folder on my desktop. I will name it answer image. You can name it whatever you want, this is optional. And I'll open the sources folder again, scroll down to where we have our Win file for our operating system, copy it and paste it in this folder. I want to expand and see more details of the copy process, how long it's taking to copy, and then the speed. Okay, we're going to wait for the copy to complete and then we'll proceed from there. Okay, once the copy process is complete, what we need to do is to just close these windows over here, and then we're going to open up our Windows System Image Manager again in administrative mode. So you right click and select Run as Administrator. You accept by clicking yes over here, and then you can now select your Windows image. The Windows image you are selecting is going to create a catalog file so that we can use it to create our answer file over here. So I'm going to select, right click here, and you select Windows image, and then I'll browse to the desktop to go and select my Windows image. I'll double click to select. Once it opens, it tells me that we have two operating systems in this image file: Windows 7 Pro, the volume license 64-bit edition, and the KMS activated version. Okay, this is a feature in the Windows imaging technology. You can have multiple operating systems appended to one Win file. Okay, so we're going to use the Windows 8 Pro volume license 64-bit. Whatever version of Windows you are using, when it pops up, you can just select it and then click OK. And it tells me that the catalog file for the image was not found, so it's going to generate a new one for me. Do I want it to do it? I'll just click yes here to agree, and it will start generating a catalog file for me. Okay, now that our Windows System Image Manager is done creating the catalog file, it has loaded some components and packages here under the Windows Image tab here for us. We're going to verify whether our Windows SIM was able to generate a catalog file in the folder that contains our image. This is a folder that we placed our image in. When we open, it tells us we have a new file over here that has been labeled install_Windows 8 Pro volume license 64-bit.clg. This shows that this is a catalog file, and that is what we just need in order to be able to create our answer file. So once this one is created, you can copy it to a safe location. Next time if you need it, you can just select on the option we used over here, and then you go select this catalog file, and you don't need to go through the process of generating a catalog file again. All right, now let's have a look at how we can create the answer file. Okay, I'll first of all right click here and select new answer file to give me this component over here. Okay, so we have a lot of components over here, but we are not going to go through all of them. We are just going to select one for just testing. I'll just scroll down to where we can partition our disk. I'm going to look for Windows Setup, this one over here, And then when I expand here, I see disk configuration. Okay, I'm going to right click here and select add settings to pass 1 Windows PE, and then I'll come here and select this one, and then use as the option whether we want to enable our firewall. You can change it to true to accept that you want to enable your firewall, and then the network location you can set it to true, and then you can select this one over here and right click and then select insert new disk, and then it gives you the option, but you have to also do something like this. You see this option over here? This will allow you to create it from the GUI in case there is an error. So it tells us we'll show user interface, then you select on error. Otherwise, when your answer file fails, you'll not be given the option to just do it. It will give you an error and tell you the answer file is not working and the system will restart. So we want the user interface for configuring disk to pop up in case there's an error with our answer file. And then I'll select here and then go to create partition. I'll select this first option here and give the disk ID disk 0. I'll tell it we are using the first physical drive on the target machine that we're going to use this answer file on. And then this option is asking us that do we want to wipe the disk if there are partitions on it. This option over here, when we set it to true, is going to clean the partitions. And then when we come here, we can get a chance to insert a new partition. So I'll just right click here and then select insert new partition, and it gives me the option to select the order of my partition. I'll select 1 over here. I'll just type 1 over here and I'll specify the size of the partition I want you to create. So it could be that my machine I'm going to use this answer file on is having about 500 gig of space, but I can decide to only create 20 gigabyte of disk space on it, and then 20 gigabyte partition, and then install my operating system on it. So if you want exactly 20 gig, we have to multiply. I'll run the calculator. I just pressed Windows plus R to open the run prompt, and I type calc. Okay, so the calculator opens. I want to just do some math here. This is for 1 gig. I'll multiply by 20, and this figure is for 20 gig. So this is 20 gig in megabyte. I'll specify the value here in megabyte. Okay, and then you select the type of partition you are creating. It's a primary partition, and then I'll go to modify, right click and select insert new modify partition, and then I'll tell it this is an active partition. I'll set it to true to tell it that this is an active partition so that it becomes bootable. We are not going to extend the partition that we are creating over here. If you set the extend to true, that means that you should use the available unallocated space on this disk, on the disk we are going to install this operating system to. So if you create 20 gig and there's still some space like 10 gig unallocated, it's going to extend it, but we don't want that. We just want the 20 gig. So you're going to set this extend to false, and then you're going to tell it to format it with NTFS, and then we can give it a label that this is going to be our operating system. Okay, this is the label that we are giving to the drive that we are partitioning. It's optional. You can call it any name you want. You can type root here and it's also going to work. and then we're going to give it a drive letter. We're going to give our disk the drive letter C, the usual drive letter for Windows root partitions, and then order, I'm going to select 1 over here, and then the partition 2, the ID of the partition is partition 1, and the type of partition 2 is a primary partition, but we've already specified over here, so we can leave it here. Okay, the next thing we're going to do here is to tell the operating system to install to the partition that we've created in an answer file. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to scroll down to image install, and then we're going to expand OS image, and then we select install to. All right, click on install to, and then we add settings to pass 1 Windows PE, and then I'll specify here that it should install to disk 0 partition 1. Okay, because we specified over here, you remember the partition ID is 1, the disk ID is disk 0. So we are telling it that after it creates the partition, it should install the operating system to disk 0 partition 1. Okay, now I think this is enough, and this is going to partition our hard drive for us. Okay, there are more things that we can do here with this answer file. If you have a product key, you can enter the product key over here. You can add the product key to your answer file, and it gives you an option to add it. So I'm going to just add something here. This one is for the UELA terms of agreement, the Microsoft license agreement. I'll just add it so that I don't get that option to just go and check the box before I can proceed. I want that to also be automated for me. So I'll right click on this and select add settings to pass 1 Windows PE. And then when I expand over here, I can set this one to true to check the box. And then you can type your full name and your organization name as well, but it's optional. But it's giving me an option here to also add my product key, but I don't have a product key, so I'll just get rid of this by right clicking and selecting delete. And then once you're done with your answer file, you can verify whether all the things that you've done over here doesn't have any syntax error in it, and everything that you've done here is valid. So you test your answer file before you send it to your deployment machine. Okay, you can test it right from here by clicking on validate answer file. When I click on validate answer file, it tells me that no warnings or errors were detected. So if something went wrong, maybe you selected over here that you should name this one disk 0. You should give this one your drive disk 0 ID, and then you come here to install to, and you tell it to install to, let's say, disk 1. The Windows SIM will detect automatically that you have made a mistake with your answer file when you click this validate answer file icon over here. So this is one way that you can use to test your answer file before you even send it to your destination machines. So if you don't want any problem with your answer file, it's best you validate it to check if there are no errors before you proceed. Okay, so there are so many things that we can do here, but I'm just going to leave it as simple as this. It's just for testing. When you have time, you can go through all these things and learn how you can just set them up to automate your Windows installation. After we're done creating our answer file, the next thing that we need to do is to name it. So we're going to save the answer file as something. Yeah, we're going to save it as an XML file. That is a new extension that Microsoft is using for their answer files. Back in the era of Windows XP, it was using the .sif file extension, but right now it's using the XML extension. And you have to take note of how we are going to label this answer file. If you label it anyhow, the installation will not detect your answer file and use it for the automation. So you need to label the answer file auto unattend.xml. auto unattend.xml. I'm going to save it to the folder we created on our desktop, auto unattend.xml, and then save. Once it's saved, I can close this Windows System Image Manager, and then I can just open it and see what transpired in this particular file. I can just double click and open it with Internet Explorer and see the code that was generated by the Windows System Image Manager. Those of you out there who know how to code with the XML language, you should be able to understand this very well and alter it. Okay, so if there is a mistake, you can also alter it from here with a text editor, not from that side, but with a text editor. There are so many text editors out there, Bluefish, Sublime. You can use any one of them to edit your answer file even after you've created it. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is to get this answer file to the location we are going to use it. Back then, Microsoft was using a floppy disk to perform this Windows automation, but now floppy is leaving the system, so we barely see computers coming with floppy drives. So I'm going to show you how you can use this your answer file to perform your automation of Windows installation. The approach I'm going to show you is my own approach. It's not a Microsoft recommended approach. Okay, so let's see. You're going to copy this answer file here to our host machine, and then I'm going to place it on my desktop. I'm going to show my desktop icons, view, show desktop icons, and this is my answer file. Okay, what I'm going to do here is to place this answer file in an ISO file that contains a Windows OS setup. Okay, so I'm going to open one operating system ISO here with Power ISO. If you have Power ISO installed on your machine, you can use it. If you have Ultra ISO, you can use it. Okay, so in my situation, I have Power ISO, so I'll just double click on Windows 8 Professional to open my Windows 8 Professional ISO for me. And what Microsoft recommends is that you put the answer file at the root directory of your setup. So at this point, if you are using a USB flash drive to do your installation, what you're supposed to do is to copy your answer file to the root of your USB flash drive. It shouldn't be in any folder. It should be at the location where you have this setup.exe, the root of the setup. So I'll just copy here and paste it in my root directory of my Windows 8 setup DVD, and then I'll save the changes. Save the changes. I'll select yes over here. It's taking some time. That should be done soon. Okay, so we had an error here that I just closed, but the reason why it's giving us an error is because this operating system image is still connected to our VMware. Okay, so I'm going to just disconnect from my VMware. As you can see, still connected to my VMware, and I'll select OK here, then retry again to see. Now let's see what happens. Yes. Okay, and it saves our answer file to the root directory of our Windows 8 professional installation DVDs root. Okay, now what we need to do is to just close this Power ISO, and then we don't need this file anymore. So I'm just going to trash it. And then we need to connect that image that we just created that has our answer file on it to a new machine and perform an installation with it and see whether the Windows setup can detect the answer file and use it for the installation. Okay, if this works well, that means that we shouldn't be given the option to partition our hard drive, because we have already instructed the installation by the help of the answer file to partition our hard disk and give it 20 gigabytes and then install the operating system to it. So that phase of the installation process should pass when the answer file works well. Okay, so I'm going to create a new machine over here, and then we're going to use it to perform this installation. I'll select this option over here on our home button. You can also click on File and select New Virtual Machine. It brings up the same New Virtual Machine wizard. I'll leave the radio button at typical. Go next. Select I will install operating system later. Go next. Select the operating system I want to deploy or install. In our case, we're going to install Windows 8 64-bit. So we'll leave it at this side and go install. We are going to name this machine Windows 8 Automated. And go next here. You can label it wherever that you want. You can name it with any name you want. I'll go next here. And then I'll store this as a single file by moving the radio button to this side. And then go next here. And then I'll go finish. Once the machine loads, the next thing I need to do is to connect my Windows 8 Pro DVD that has my answer file on it to this machine. So I'll double click the CD icon over here and then switch this radio button to use ISO image file, browse, and then look for my setup DVD. I'll open this OS, and this is the one that I altered. Okay, this is the one that has my answer file in it. You can just open and then click OK here, and then I'll click here. So the virtual machine starts. I've just started the virtual machine, and if everything works well, we should not be given the option to partition our hard drive, because the answer file is going to do that job for us. Okay, so let's wait. I'm going into full screen mode. Okay, it asks us to select our language. I'll leave it at US. Go next. Select our operating system that we want to install. This is the one that we created the answer file for. So I'm going to select this one and go next here. And it doesn't ask me to partition my hard drive. It just goes straight into copying Windows files. That means that our answer file is working really great. So we're going to wait for the installation process to complete. Then we're going to check our partitions, our drive partitions on this particular virtual machine to see whether it partitioned it to 20 gig as we indicated in our answer file. Okay, so our system has complete booting, So what we are going to do here is to check by going to computer to verify whether the partition that we created was successful. Okay, so I'm going to click on Windows Explorer over here and select computer, and it tells us we have a 20 gigabyte partition over here, and it has been labeled OS as we said. It has been given the drive letter C, and when we right click on computer over here and we go to manage and open our disk management console, see that it has partitioned 20 GB out of the entire 60 GB that we had. So the answer file worked well, so everything is fine. Alright, so that is that for creating answer files to automate Windows installation with System Image Manager. See you next time. Bye bye.